Mom. Mwah. Okay, so yesterday, Ellie had to decide. She got two different telegrams. One was from LA. The parents are flying out to New York to meet Ellie so they can pick her up and take her back home. So today we're going to see what the other telegram said. All right, we are still in the chapter called Ellie's Decision. Ellie makes a decision, Ellie's decision, something like that. Okay. Shawl, the dog, lay stretched out in the middle of a parquet floor of the study, reveling in the warmth of afternoon sunshine. 15 minutes earlier, Ellie had sent her parents a wire that would stop their trip to New York. Unshaven and clearly distraught, Uncle Howard followed her to the study. "I am responsible ultimately for your safety, Ellie." He clasped his hands behind his back and he paced to and fro in front of the empty display cabinets. "If anything were to happen to you, I would never forgive myself. Worse than that," he said, as he waved it under Ellie's nose, "your mother would never forgive me." Ellie reached down and patted Shaw's broad head, and then scratched him under the chin, pretending not to hear. "If I leave now," she said with an amused smile, "Life magazine will never forgive me." She pulled the New York telegram from her trouser pocket and rattled it at him. "You can't argue with the power of the press, Uncle Howard, and neither can Mother." She unfolded the paper and began to read the telegram deliberately. "Life editorial, very impressed with Palestine photographs." Stop. "Hopefully you can accept assignment." Stop. "All expenses paid." Etc., etc., etc. Ellie finished triumphantly. "Ellie, if you take this assignment, there's no telling what you'll get yourself into. Haven't you had enough?" Ah, that's David. He's got to get something, but I don't know what it is. "Haven't you heard enough? Haven't you seen enough to know that no one is playing games here?" "You're right. Nobody's playing games. Least of all, me. You remember what you said to me about everything having some kind of a plan? Well, maybe you're right. Maybe this crazy, mixed-up mess I call my life is meant to be lived right here in this exact moment. Maybe I can be just a tiny part of some miracle." Excitement rose in her voice. "That is not what I meant, young lady," he scowled. "Don't you think God can watch over me, Uncle Howard?" She lifted her chin defiantly. Having sprung a trap, he could not maneuver out. "God is not some kind of bulletproof vest, Ellie." He frowned down at her. "Take a look at Yakov." "That's right. What about the boy? He'll be getting out of the hospital in a few days. He can never get past the Arab blockades into the old city. Where's he going to stay?" "You're changing the subject, Ellie. You remind me more and more of your mother every day." He sighed with exasperation. "Wave to Mom." That's David saying hi, Mom. He sighed with exasperation, plopped down in his chair. "I have already considered staying here myself," he said absently, "but you're changing the subject." No, sorry. I didn't change the subject. Yakov has no place to go, and I think he ought to stay with us here." She sat back with finality and glared at his frowning face. He slammed his fist on the desk and leaned forward angrily. "Not with us," he said. "You, my dear, you will be back in sunny, nonviolent California in time for Christmas. And regardless of my decision to stay here or to wait it out in Beirut," Ellie raised her eyebrows in defiance, "take another look at my telegram. Life has offered me an all-expense room at King David Hotel. Go ahead and close the school. Pack up your jar handles and move to Beirut. Either I stay here with you and work for them, or I stay at the King David Hotel and work for them. It doesn't matter. I'm taking this assignment. Uncle Howard leaned back in resignation. I should have shipped you home, you know. Crepe me up like a mummy? And send me back out of harm's way? Is that it? I had considered it. He rubbed his hand across his bald head and gazed around the room. I'm sending all these treasures to Beirut for safekeeping, regardless. They're worth more than I am. He mumbled, and then he looked at Ellie for a light of humor flickering in his eyes once again. You think God can use the likes of us, child? Ellie rolled her eyes, as if to comment on the seemingly impossibility of it all. Who knows? She laughed. Well then, you better call Moshe and find out where we begin. Okay, Mom, we're at chapter 18 now. This is called the sacrificial lamb. No, the sacrifice lamb. That sounds not too happy. David rubbed his stocking feet together under the makeshift poker table of his hotel room. Wearily, he toyed with his dwindling pile of matchsticks as Michael Cohen leered from behind a miniature lumberyard of winnings. Good grief, drawled the cherub-faced Benny Rothberg as he shuffled and dog-eared the cards. Don't you get sick of winning? Yeah, David chimed in. If he gets any more matchsticks over there, the whole table's just going to collapse. Shut up and deal already, snapped Bobby Milliken, a coarse-haired New York-born Jew. His large green cigar clouded the room with thick, reeking haze. Why don't you put that thing out? Benny wrinkled his nose and fanned the air with a deck of cards. Nah, snarled Bobby. I gotta fumigate the place. Get rid of the bugs from that stinking dog. Ah, he doesn't have fleas, Michael said defensively. He had a terminal case of mean. Bobby chewed the cigar. He just doesn't like cigars. Benny dealt the cards. Or people that smoke. Michael nonchalantly picked up his cards one by one. Or the people that smell like Milliken. David smiled as Bobby blew smoke over in his direction. Then he began to cough and choke as he looked at his cards. It's not the cigar that stinks, fella. It's this hand, and he pitched his cards on the table. I'm out. Michael's eyes remained cool as he picked up 2 matchsticks and tossed them into the ante. It'll cost you guys 2 to stay in. David scraped his chair back from the table, stood up, stretched, and walked slowly to the windowsill and looked out over the rain-soaked stillness of Bermuda Street below. Never, he thought, has the Street of the Jews housed such a motley crew as the American Haganah volunteers. Has it stopped raining yet, David? Michael asked as he triumphantly laid a full house on top of Bobby's 3 nines. At least it doesn't smell like wet dog in here anymore, growled Bobby as he counted his meager ration of matchsticks. Guess that cigar is good for something, Michael agreed. But it's a good thing for you, Milliken, that we weren't playing for cash. Benny straightened the cards carefully before replacing them in their worn-out box. So where did you go with the motif anyway? Oh, with the mutt, the dog. Anyway, David had made him into a fur coat for his girl. Bobby laughed. Nah, he took him over to her house and left him. She said they'd keep the dog, but David had to go. Right, Dave? Michael asked, adding up his winnings. It's about the size of it. David smiled and plopped down on his bed, which sagged and groaned under his weight. I better go to bed so you guys can get out of here. He laid back on his pillow and put his hands under his head. See you in the morning, Michael called out after them, no doubt rousing most of the residents of the Atlantic Hotel. Then he shut the door and rubbed his hands together, gloating. What a night! You'd think Bobby lost his life savings the way he acted. You got x-ray eyes, or were those cards marked? Asked David. You're jealous, Meyer. Michael kicked off his shoes, opened the window, inhaled a blast of cold air that flooded into the room. You gotta have heart to play a game like this, you know? He slammed the window down shut and threw himself on the bed. You call that heart? You went after Milliken like you wanted to beat the socks off him, David said. I didn't want the socks, or I would have had him. That man is such a schmuck. I'll take the dog over him any day. Don't be so hard on him. David eyed Michael's toes sticking out of his socks. You might have heart, but if you had a brain in your head, you'd have played for his socks. Michael wiggled his toes. Scarecrow, right? Scarecrow and the Tin Men. That's us. David leaned over and switched off the light. Michael, he asked as he unbuttoned his shirt and threw it into the darkness. Yeah? Michael's voice was sounding sleepy. If we had brains, we'd be back in Kansas with Auntie M. David closed his eyes. Don't forget Dorothy and that shaggy little mutt Toto over there. Michael muttered. I'm not so dumb that I don't know why you came to Palestine, you know. Well, she's going back to the States. You staying on? Michael asked, after a lengthy pause. After what I saw on the road yesterday, I get the feeling I ought to hang around and help out. Great. Michael yawned. Can I borrow a pair of socks tomorrow? Okay, now, Gerhardt leaned against the building across from the Atlantic Hotel, peered up through the pouring rain at the brightly lit windows on the third floor. The red-headed woman's escape, as it turned out, had been a windfall for him. It had brought yet another young suitor under his ever-watchful eyes. The tall American flyer had not come to Palestine simply for pleasure. He, too, then, was a member of the Haganah, as were those men who stayed with him in the Atlantic Hotel on Ben Mira Street. What a better place, thought Gerhard, than this street of the Jews, to celebrate the Jewish Festival of Lights with a little gift from Hoyman. He studied the structure of the building, making mental notes of the weakest point. Then he scanned the building on either side and smiled at the simplicity of his plan. So the staff at the King David Hotel at least maintained a pretense of opulent normality. The red-coat doorman, complete with medals and epitaphs and a hint of gray hair peeking out from beneath the black cap, looked more regal than a retired general. David pulled up to the main entrance in the battered green Plymouth. The doorman stepped out forward and effortlessly opened Ellie's door, helped her out in one movement. She stood staring up at the leaded arch windows until David joined her on a broad red carpet that led to the plush interior of the hotel. David was angry at Ellie's news. Ellie would not be joining the other students and staff of the American school for their flight home. You know, this was supposed to be your goodbye dinner, he said gruffly as he took her arm and passed into the lobby. Well, can't we make it a hello celebration? She smiled coyly. Come on, David, I thought you'd be happy for me. After all, this is Life magazine. It's your life I'm worried about, he remarked sullenly. Okay, Mom. So we'll have to read whatever's next. We'll have to figure out what Ellie and David are going to do. It sounds like they're going to dinner, though. It's supposed to be a goodbye dinner, so that makes me think it's a dinner. They're going to dinner at the hotel. But remember Gerhard? Yeah. He's a Muslim or Arab or something that's trying to fight against the Jews. Yeah, so he's got his eye on all of them, and we'll see what happens. I love you, Mom. Have a grand